to translate into.
It's about 3 kilometers. Yeah.
It's like 5 stone. It's,
yeah, right there. Yeah.
And she weighed
3 hands.
She weighed just 90 pounds. And she was 20 years old when she disappeared.
So she's a very petite girl.
Very, very petite, yeah. She was a sophomore at Indiana State University in Bloomington, Indiana. The bad Bloomington.
The bad Bloomington? I didn't know
I went to school
bad.
in Bloomington, Illinois.
Oh,
so
you,
there's a bit of a
gotcha.
rivalry there. Because there's a Bloomington Normal, Indiana, and a Bloomington Normal, Illinois. Because nobody in the Midwest knows how to creatively name places.
Oh.
They're both like twin cities.
Sweet.
And I went to school in Bloomington, Illinois. Anyway,
Yeah.
she was studying textile merchandising, which I know I've seen she was planning on going into fashion with, but my understanding from research of that degree is that's not maybe the best degree.
I was very confused when I saw this in the notes.
I mean, it's more. It's my understanding. This is totally like doesn't matter to the case at all. But my understanding of that is that it's more geared towards like interior design or textile development, not fashion. But
okay.
Hey, whatever. Maybe she wanted to design fabric.
Clothes are made out of textiles. You never know.
Technically, that's true.
Maybe she just had the wrong idea and the school didn't want to steer her clear of that because they were making money.
Yeah, probably true.
Could have been.
By all accounts, Lauren was a really great person. And though some do suspect foul play, nobody suspects foul play in the because she had a bunch of
Seems unlikely.
or a grudge or really premeditated in any way.
So kind of a crime of opportunity.
More of a crime
maybe.
of opportunity if there is indeed foul play involved in this. I guess let's just jump right in and talk about timeline.
We've got a pretty decent timeline in this one, which is nice compared to a lot of stories.
Sizable timeline, yeah.
Yeah, she
and
was
there's
spotted
not,
on a lot of cameras. That helps.
She was, but there's not, it's not like a leading up incidents. What's the phrase? It's events leading to the event or
Leading up to
leading to the event. That we don't really have that. It's she was a normal
college student.
She was very involved in extracurricular activities.
Until that night, nobody would have guessed this was going to happen.
Yeah.
This was a Thursday night, right?
It was a Thursday night, June 3rd, 2011.
Yeah, I remember it well.
Well, I guess it was June 4th, 2011.
I guess,
It was
yeah.
June 3rd, 2011, because our timeline starts
I think
midnight 30.
Yeah, I think it started Thursday night. Thursday was the second. Not that it's that big of a deal, but then Friday was the third.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No, you're right. Sorry.
So 12:30 a.m. on Friday.
Yeah. Okay. So 12:30 a.m. Friday morning. So
The wee hours.
the wee hours. And, researching this story reminded me of how I'm actually an adult now, because I read that and I was like, that has to be a typo, and read 3 other places and I was like, oh, dang it.
Yeah, I know.
That's real. So
know.
Lauren left her apartment to go pregame at 12:30 a.m., midnight 30 a.m. on Friday, June 3rd, 2011. She left her apartment at Smallwood Plaza, and she left with her friend, David Rohn. They met up with a friend, with a bunch of friends at Jay Rosenbaum's townhouse at the 5 North Townhomes.
Which was a couple of blocks away.
It was it was pretty close.
Really a bunch of apartments.
It's all, everything kind of in Bloomington, Indiana is pretty close to each other. It's all pretty walking distance. One of the people that was there was a guy by the name of Corey Rossman and his roommate, whose name is Mike Beth. They both lived 2 doors down. Her boyfriend, Jesse, did not go out that night. He says they were texting all night until he went to bed. I don't have any information as to what time he went to bed.
I heard about 2:30 a.m.
Yeah, I was going to say, he said he stayed up and watched the basketball game. I think it was the Heat were in the championships for some reason. And he stayed up with his friends. Game was over. They continued to drink at the apartment, and then he went to bed.
Right. But
allegedly.
It's probably worth saying that nobody has any reason to doubt this.
Yeah.
And I think that cell towers corroborated. Not that Bloomington is so large that a cell tower pinging in one place or another, but worth mentioning. And so what everybody was doing, the group that Lauren was with, was they were doing this pre-gaming thing, which I have heard.
Pre-funk is what we used to call it.
Oh yeah, we always call it pre-gaming. But I've always heard this described as a weekly ritual, or more than frequently than weekly, but that it was the same group of people would get together for the same thing on the same night pretty much all the time. Thirsty Thursdays is, a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember, when I was in college, I think we only had 2 nights a week that didn't have designated drinking themes.
Yeah. This sounds very familiar. For me, I swear it was like Tuesday, Wednesday, or Wednesday, Thursday, something like that.
Oh, we had
It was every night of the week.
we had beer club Tuesday, and wine women Wednesday, and then Thirsty Thursdays, and then Fridays always had a different theme, and Saturdays had a different theme. So it was Sunday and Monday nights were our only nights off.
Got it.
And we came up with reasons to drink those nights anyways.
Joe and I used to go out for Anything Can Happen Mondays.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's
Those
right. I
were
remember
fun.
that was actually a good time. Yeah.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
So there was definitely drinking and allegedly drugs, ostensibly drugs,
I hope so.
happening there as well. And again, worth reminding people, Lauren at this time is only 20 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't already know, the legal drinking age in America is 21. So
Well,
she was
not everywhere. It's 18 in some places. Isn't it?
There are a few places left.
Not in Bloomington,
But drugs
Indiana.
are not.
not legal.
No ID shit, no ID needed, yeah.
Yeah. So that's just worth mentioning.
Okay, so
So
anyway,
they
there.
pregame at Jay's townhouse until about 1:46 a.m., which is when Corey and Lauren walk over to Kilroy's Sports Bar, which was a local sports bar that apparently wasn't really great at IDing that late at night.
Kilroy's is huge.
It looked huge.
Yeah,
That
big
bar
place.
is freaking gigantic.
Yeah, it looked really big, and it looked like, again, the kind of like college place. I think I don't know what Indiana's law. Actually, we were just in Indiana. I don't know that I even looked up when their like beer o'clock is. So we used to call it beer o'clock whenever they stopped serving alcohol.
It's 2.
2?
Yeah,
But-
that's when the hotel kicked us out of the bar. It's 2.
Was it 2?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. So yeah, they showed up pretty much like 15 minutes before last call.
Right.
They had been pre-gaming already, but it sounds like that was a pretty big place where people kind of hung out. And just because a bar stops serving alcohol doesn't mean they necessarily close. And I
No.
think that was the case with Kilroy's.
I never understood the wanting to go to the bar just before it closed.
Well,
I've done it, don't get me wrong, but I never could fathom how fun that would be.
There are places that have after hours functions too, but for me it was always like, there's no more booze. What the hell? I'm leaving. I mean, right?
yeah, so I think in this instance, it's likely that they just got pretty sloppy about IDing later in the night. Because it was kind of like, all right, who's going to sneak in for the last 15 minutes?
Well, she also had a
Nobody.
fake ID, I believe.
Yeah, but I mean, a fake ID you can still, just because somebody has a fake ID, like,
Doesn't mean
if
it's
you're
good.
good at IDing, it means you should be able to catch a fake ID.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean?
It's
So-
a college town, you're not
Sure.
going to be too,
But you might be in that. I would just say that'd be a reason that I could give for why she would go that late.
Because she wanted one more Midori sour.
Or, I don't know, maybe there was like dancing happening there. I don't know.
Yeah, that thing has a bunch of dance floors.
Yeah,
It is a one-stop shop of drinking and partying.
it is. Then at 2:27 a.m., Lauren is seen exiting the bar with Corey. Lauren had left her cell phone and her shoes at the bar.
I do that a lot.
The shoes she had taken off, there was a part of the patio, again, one-stop shop, part of the patio that was sandy. I think she wasn't wearing heels, but she
It'd
was
be some
wearing
kind of sandal.
some kind of something, yeah, because it gets pretty hot in Indiana. And she'd taken them off to go walk out in the sand and then just
they have
left
they have a little volleyball there, maybe.
They do, actually. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
confused by this, so I went to their Facebook page, and there's boatloads of photos of it. And it's, how there's that big green awning in the front that you always see in all the photos of
Yeah.
it? They're like 40 foot long or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, just to the right is a courtyard that's fenced in, and apparently they truck in sand to have stuff go on. What was it that the event that Malibu Party was the
Ooh.
photo album that I was looking at? So that was,
That sounds
very
like
cleverly
fun.
named.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, so it's right there. They had volleyball.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Maybe
to
I'll
me.
go back to college. Go to Bloomington,
Yeah.
Illinois. Yeah, I almost said Illinois.
Can. The college that's there is vastly superior.
Of course.
So then 3 minutes later at 2:30 a.m., Lauren is seen entering Smallwood Plaza, which is where her apartment is.
Yeah. Which is, by the way, just around the corner from the bar, practically.
Yeah. She's got Corey with her. A group of boys basically saw her and Corey, and it kind of differs a little bit. Basically, they noticed that she was in bad shape, and asked her, because they knew, everybody kind of knew each other, and asked her, like, hey, are you okay? And she said, yeah, I'm fine. But apparently at the same time, Corey got in an altercation with the same group of guys. And the reporting that I've heard is that they didn't like the way that Corey was treating Lauren, whether that be like handling, like touching, acting around,
well,
whatever.
If you're a guy, well, I think the guy that that he had the altercation with was Zach Oakes, who was a friend of
Jesse.
Jesse,
Jesse,
Lauren's
the boyfriend. Yeah. And of course, when you're a guy and you see this girl and she's hammered, which apparently by all reports she was.
She was.
And some stranger is like taking her off to her apartment. You make the assumption that, well, he's taking her back there to take advantage of her. So he might not have been mishandling it at all. You just make the automatic assumption, hey, this guy's going to do what I would do. I don't like that.
Apparently, Corey also smarted off to him.
That could have been it too. Yeah.
So what happened during this altercation, though, is it was a physical altercation. What happened is Zach hit Corey in the head. Punched him. Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently knocked him to the floor.
Yeah, I don't know that would have been like too hard of a thing to do to Corey at that point, because he was also pretty intoxicated.
Yeah.
I don't think he was in a great shape anyway. But from that, I am going to use the word ostensibly, because I think it really fits here. Ostensibly, Corey lost the 15 minutes prior to this altercation and the rest of his memory for the rest of the night until he woke up the next morning.
I will also say that it may not have been the blow to the head that caused that.
Else.
He may have been so saucy that nothing was being recorded by his brain.
Or he just doesn't want to tell people what was being recorded by his brain.
Could be convenient.
That's a pretty convenient excuse.
Some people are a little suspicious.
For whatever reason, I don't really know why, but at this point, Lauren and Corey decide to go back to Corey's house. Because Lauren did eventually, and we'll talk about this in a minute, but she did eventually misplace her keys.
Yeah, she did.
But it wasn't until after they left her apartment. So it wasn't as
I don't think they ever actually got into her apartment. They were just in the building and left after the smackdown.
They got up to the 5th floor, actually. They took the elevator all the way, which was where her apartment was, and that's where they had the altercation. And then instead of just going to her apartment, they turned around.
That's what I'm saying.
It's a little weird, because, I mean, obviously, that's a good reason to, forget just everything you knew, which is what Corey did. Because that is a little inexplicable.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think it's weird.
Drunk logic.
I don't know if it's drunk logic or what necessarily. And again, we don't really have... Corey's the only person who can tell us what really happened, because it seems to me that group of boys had that altercation and then left. And, probably assuming that Lauren was just going to go... Like, they were right outside of her apartment. She was probably just going to go right in, and then... But she didn't.
Actually, I have a theory, but it sort of crosses into slander.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that in theories. How's that?
Okay.
Okay. At 2:48 a.m., so the altercation took a little while, this whole situation that happened in the apartment.
Yeah, I heard that they were there in the apartment building for about 12 minutes.
Yeah.
But I think she was caught. I think they were caught on tape leaving the apartment building as well.
At 2:48.
2:42. And no, was it 2:48?
Yeah,
okay.
Is when they were seen leaving the apartment. So they were 18 minutes-ish. So they left the apartment, and Lauren and Corey entered an alleyway that runs between College Avenue and Morton Street. There's some security cameras nearby. There's lots of security cameras in Bloomington that caught a lot of footage of her, and I will just say that one of the frustrations with this case is that the police have, and we'll talk about this probably a little bit more in a little bit, but the police have, for whatever reason, chosen not to release the majority of the tapes, which, is kind of weird, but fine, whatever.
Yeah, that's kind of the way the cops are about this stuff.
Yep. So the security camera mounted on the apartments show her and Corey exit the alley at 2:51 a.m. and walk towards an empty lot. A woman came forward as a witness, and I don't have a good bead on when exactly this one instance happened, but then the following instance happened after they had left the alleyway.
You're talking about the...
And she was leaving, quote unquote, visiting a male friend. We all know what that actually means. And she said that she saw Lauren and Corey sitting on some stairs, and the young girl...
That would be Lauren.
Her words, young girl, which is easy. Lauren was so small that it would have been easy to mistake her for a young girl. The young girl tipped over and hit her head, and the woman said that it was a really, really loud noise.
And that is tipped over as in fell over backwards, correct?
Yeah,
That's
just
what I heard. Is like fell backwards.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
they're
basically just lost her balance and just...
Yeah, and there were concrete steps too, also, by the way, from what I heard. Yeah.
Yeah, that's seriously intoxicated.
Yeah.
I mean, because if you don't try to catch yourself or turn or anything, and I've had friends who were so intoxicated they face planted on the sidewalk,
Well,
and everybody
Lauren-
said they didn't do anything; they just went straight down.
Well, Lauren did that later.
yeah,
but-
and that's what I'm saying. And that and this, it's like that's a real indicator
Oh, for
of
sure.
her blood alcohol level.
Yeah, but I think that incident happened in the alleyway. Is my sense is that like there were stairs into the alleyway and that they had set because it took them a really long time to get through the alleyway, basically that specific alleyway. So I'm guessing that they sat down and then the woman saw them and blah blah. But again, I don't really know when that happens. But after they left that alleyway, they were walking down a different alleyway, lots of alleyways, and there were the investigators talk about Lauren falling forward and hitting her head like she didn't even put her hands up
Yeah,
in the
face
alleyway.
plant. Yeah.
And then Corey helped her up, and then they got a couple steps, and then she just like crumpled is the term that people use mostly, where she just fell again. Corey picks her up again, and for whatever reason takes her to the apartment of 4 girls they'd been partying with earlier. That was like right there, but nobody was home. I don't really know. I don't understand the logic of a lot of these things that were happening. I mean, drunk logic, sure, but I don't Lauren didn't live that far away from Corey. It was just like a couple blocks, so I don't really know why they went to this girl's apartment. But
If Corey figures that if she's this fall down drunk, he's not going to want to go back to the apartment complex that she lives in because he's already got his clock cleaned once. So he's going to try and find somebody else to offload her on because right now she's being a total drag.
fair enough.
Could be. Yeah.
So there were cameras that caught he and Lauren going up into this apartment building. The 4 girls were reportedly not home. So there are also cameras, obviously, of them leaving. And when they're leaving, Corey is carrying Lauren at this point. But he's got her... I really can't find the right way to describe this.
Kind of like a fireman's carry, I heard.
He's kind of wearing her like a cape, honestly.
Yeah, fireman's carry.
Kind of, yeah. Where her arms are just...
around his neck and forward, and she is draped across his back.
Yeah, she's just laying, and her legs are towards the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But
Is that
short
a
enough that they don't
fireman's carry?
drag.
I don't think that's a
I
fireman's
thought fireman's carry was over the shoulder with
I
the
thought
head
so,
facing
too.
backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, well, I thought it was kind of draped over both shoulders.
Yeah, well, that's
Yeah.
so. She was a human cape.
But
that's the best way to describe
Yeah,
but
she
not
was.
that's not the
Because her
fireman's
arms
carry.
were, yeah, no,
Right.
her arms were over his shoulders, and he was just holding them, and then she was just draped down the rest of his body. But like I said, she was tiny, so she wasn't dragging on the floor or anything like that. His lawyers, I think it's his lawyers. I don't actually know. I watched this
He has at
interview.
least one lawyer,
Well, I
think.
watched this interview with these 2 lawyers who looked like total balls, and I couldn't figure out. They just said who their names were, and I Googled them, and I couldn't figure out. I think they're his lawyers. They're lawyers of the defense of some kind, and they have a very good timeline of some more eyewitness accounts and things like that, and that's where I got some of this information. But they said that she was conscious at this point. Actually, to my point about them being kind of balls, the quote actually exactly is, "Oh no, she was alive and well at this point. Well, maybe not well, but alive." Unquote.
Yeah.
Come on. So he sits her down. Corey sits Lauren down in an alcove of a building, which is the point where she drops or otherwise loses her keys and her ID, because that was found in like a little alcove in an alley
No.
during
Right.
the search for her. Then they head off to Corey's house at this time for real, and I don't know if he was carrying her, if she was walking at this point. I think he was carrying her again. His roommate, Mike, who we talked about earlier, was at home and still awake, lucky for Corey. Mike sees Lauren there, but there hasn't been a whole lot of elaboration on her state at this point. I haven't really ever seen. Again, the guys aren't talking really. They don't have a lot to say about this case.
Let's clear up this right now.
Yeah.
All of the guys that we're going to talk about, Corey, and then the other gentleman that we're all going to talk about, they all lawyered up right away. And some people point to that as a sign of hiding something, and other people say, no, that's called being smart and protecting yourself. So that's why the information this is where the information gets a little more sketchy.
Totally.
Because of that. Because
Yeah.
their lawyers say, shut up.
Yeah.
And say
Which
nothing.
Is, again, it'd be great